There we go. Good. All right, here's the third Mishnah in the third chapter of Pesachim. Now, again, the Mishnahs are verbal formulas to remind us of certain laws. It's like shorthand. So not always is the law according to what it says in the Mishnah. In general, the Mishnah is the oral Torah that was given by God to Moshe. Okay, so it's not necessarily the law, what it says over here. And it's also not always relevant to all time. What it says, sometimes the laws, there are certain laws which are only relevant to the time of the Holy Temple. And there's laws of purity and impurity. And here's two examples. Let me just translate it and then I'll explain. How do you separate challah, a portion of the dough, the dough that has to be given in the Holy Temple, betuma, if it's impure on Yom Tov? Okay, what's happening over here? Let's look at the explanation. Our Mishnah is dealing with a dough, right? A ball of dough that got impure on the first day of Passover, Yom Tov. Okay, now something that's impure cannot be used in the Holy Temple. And of course, the Pesach offering has to be brought to the Holy Temple. A sacrifice, if it becomes impure, then it can't be eaten. It can't be eaten. Okay, now on the other hand, if it's not holy, then there's nothing wrong with it being impure. Impurity generally only deals with going to the Holy Temple. So if it's impure, it's not holy, then if it's not holy, if it's regular mundane food, right, then there's nothing wrong with eating it. Okay, but here we have a big problem. If you have mundane food and you want to give a portion to the Kohen, this is also another law in the Holy Temple. You had to give challah, a portion, to the Kohen. Now we do take challah, but we don't give it to a Kohen. We just burn it. Now you want to give a portion of this challah to the Kohen. So we have a lot of problems over here. We have a dough, it became impure. Let's say a rat touched it or a mouse touched it or something. And it became impure on Yom Tov. And you want to take challah out of this dough. Okay, what's going on? In order to understand the problem of our Mishnah, let's proceed with a few laws. If you have a dough that is pure, it hasn't been touched by any impure animals or impure people, then you take from it challah, you take off a portion of it, let's say 1/100th, and you bake it and you give it to a Kohen. Why do you have to bake it? Because we're talking about Pesach now. You bake it and give it to a Kohen. Why do you have to bake it? You really could give it to him raw dough. But here you can't do it, because if you leave it around, shalo yishtahot, if you delay giving it to the Kohen, tachmitz, if you leave just dough around, it'll become chametz, right? What's the difference between the chametz and matzah? It's the exact same ingredients, water and flour. It's chametz, and water and flour is matzah. The difference is that chametz is dough that has not been worked on, let's say for 18 minutes. You didn't do anything in a normal heat, normal room temperature. If you just leave dough alone, then it becomes chametz. We'll learn about that in the next Mishnah. Okay, so if you have regular dough and you want to use it on Pesach, let's say you're cooking matzahs, just regular, maybe for the meal, for the mitzvah, but in any case, you're cooking matzahs and you have dough, and suddenly that dough I'm sorry, you have to give a portion of that dough to the Kohen. Now you can't leave it around. You have to bake it first so that it doesn't become chametz, because baked dough doesn't become chametz. That's why we buy matzahs in the store. They can be there for months. So then afterwards, you give this baked challah, this baked portion. Challah is the name of the portion that you take off of the coin. You give it to the coin. But if this dough became impure, right, like it touched a rat or something, one of the animals that are in kosher, that are not this is one of the shiratzim, or one hare, dead, if they're dead, then the challah that you separated from it is not fit for a kohen. It's impure. So it comes out now that you can't bake it on Yom Tov. You are allowed to bake on Yom Tov, yes, but you can only bake things on Yom Tov in order to eat them, or that someone will eat them. And here, this portion you took out from now you're a regular person, a regular Jew, right? And you took off this challah and all of a sudden you realize it touched a dead rat. Now this challah is impure. What are you going to do? You can't cook it because you can't give it to the kohen. You can't eat it yourself. You separate it to give to a kohen. It's only fit for a kohen to eat, but you can't give it to the kohen because a rat or whatever touched it and it became impure. Now you have an additional problem is it's Pesach. We're talking about cooking on Pesach. It's Pesach. If you leave this dough, it'll become chametz. So bake it. What's the problem? Bake it, and then it'll stop that process of becoming chametz. So you can't bake things on Yom Tov unless it's for eating. And this would be baking shalol l'tzorechu. So you're stuck with a very big problem. What are you going to do with this dough? It says, you know what? Burn it. You get rid of it. You can't burn it. Just burn it up. That'll take care of the problem of chametz. And it'll also take care of the problem of the tuma. But you've got another problem. This dough is still kodshim. It's holy. And you're not allowed to burn kodshim on Yom Tov. You're not allowed to destroy Yom Tov. Right? If it was a regular day and it was impure, you could burn it. But here you can't burn it. So you can't cook it. You can't burn it. You can't give it to the kohen to eat it. You can't leave it around because it'll become chametz. What do? You can't, I got an idea. Give it to a dog. You can't give it to your dog. It belongs to the kohen. Give it to the dog of a kohen. That's also good. Says no good. Why? This is called bir, but in mavarim kodshim, you're not allowed to destroy kodshim in any way on Yom Tov. And not only that, we said that shetruma she ochel asur lachilu lebehema kol zaman she ru'el adam. That truma is forbidden to give it to an animal all the time that it is fit for human consumption. So what do? But this is talking about only Pesach. If the same thing would happen on any other Yom Tov, then you could take off the challah from the Isa that's impure, and you put it somewhere until Motzi Yom Tov. We don't care if it becomes chometz. Other holidays is not forbidden. But on Yom Tov of Pesach, you can't leave it around because it'll become chometz. If so, what are you going to do? On this, there's going to be a big argument in our Mishnah. So let's see. How do you separate challah and Yom Tov? How do you separate challah, tuma, namely from dough that became impure on Yom Tov of Pesach? Now, you personally, you're not a kohen. You can eat from this dough if it's impure. There's no problem. You can eat matzah, take it home and eat it. You can't bring it into the holy temple, but you can eat it. The problem is the challah. You can't give it to a kohen because he can't bring impurity into the holy temple. So we had all these problems that we had before. How do you get rid of it? Right? You can't burn it. You can't cook it because it's for the necessity of eating. You can cook and this can't be eaten. Rabbi Eliezer says, very simple. I got an answer. Lo tikra lo shem. Don't call it a name. The woman that's making this dough, that the dough became impure, she should not call the dough any name when she takes out a piece, but she doesn't say it's challah. She shouldn't take out the challah until the whole thing is cooked. Cooked, let's say a rat touches not just this little piece, it touches even the whole dough and it makes it impure. So you know what to do? Cook it. You're not cooking it in the Holy Temple, you're cooking it at home. Cook it, bake the whole thing, and then it's permissible. Now it's permissible to cook on Yom Tov because this is edible. Edible. Why can't this move? What's going on? Oh, there we go, like this. First of all, cook the whole entire dough. Cook the whole entire dough. That's permissible for you to do on Yom Tov. It's not, it hasn't become yet, you didn't call any names of this is the challah of the Kohen. So now it ends up that you're baking the whole thing for yourself. After you cook it, you bake it, then the woman should take off the challah. She should take off this portion, whatever it is, 1/100th or 1/50th or whatever, takes it off and says, this is challah. This is what Rabbi Eliezer said, that if you take the bread out of an oven and put it into a big basket, the basket will make everything joined together for challah. Okay, what does this mean? The challah, this portion that you give to the Kohen, is only taken off if the bread, if the dough is a certain size. What does it do? 42 eggs, I think. I have to look and see. 42 eggs. That's only if it's a certain size. So he says what you do is you cook all the pieces small together, break them all into separate, so that none of them are chayav in challah yet. They're not obligated in challah. If you bake a small amount, it's not. Then you bake them all. So now it won't come to be chametz because they're all baked, and baked things, they don't rise. And then put them all into one big basket. And then take the challah, take one of the pieces that you have there and say, this is challah. Right? So now you've taken a piece of out for the Kohen. The Kohen can't eat it because it's impure. But at least now you can leave it around and then burn it after the holiday. Because on the holiday, you're not allowed to burn it. The Kohen can't eat it because it's impure. Then leave it until Motzi Yom Tov, and then you burn it. That is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira says, don't do that. You have a dough that has become impure. A rat or something has touched it. So tell you what you do. The woman should take challah from it, but put that piece of challah into cold water, and then it won't become chametz. So Rabbi, the first opinion says, Rabbi Eliezer says the first opinion is that you should bake it piece by piece, bake the whole thing, and then put it all together and take one of the pieces and say, this is challah. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, no, a rat touched it, before you bake it, because you're not allowed to bake it if it's if the challah part of it, you can't bake if it's impure. He says, so don't bake it. Take off this piece, and you can't bake it because it's impure and it can't be eaten by the Kohen. So don't worry about it. Take this piece off and put it into cold water. And in cold water, it won't become chametz. What's the argument? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira disagrees with Rabbi Eliezer. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beteira, he says, even if you don't call it a name challah, it's already forbidden to bake the whole business altogether. Since that one little piece of this is not fit to eat, therefore you're cooking the whole thing unnecessarily. Rabbi Eliezer, therefore you can't cook it. So he says, therefore, what to do? Take off one piece, put that into cold water, and bake the rest. I bake the whole thing. He says you can't bake the whole thing. If one little piece of it is tuma and it's unfit for the Kohen, then that makes the whole entire thing unfit for eating until you take off that little piece. So therefore, he says, take off the little piece, says, they say that's challah, and put that into cold water. But Rabbi Eliezer says, no. He doesn't hold like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, that you should put it into cold water, because he's worried that maybe you won't be careful enough, and the challah will become chametz. Maybe you'll put it into cold water, and it'll become a chametz, and you'll be holding on to chametz in the middle of the holiday. The argument will continue, and we'll finish it, God willing, tomorrow. Thank you very much for being with us, and have a good day with Mashiach. Now, see you tomorrow, God willing, at 8:15. Shalom uvracha.